Thank you, everyone. It's 7 o'clock and the meeting can now start.
Good evening. I call to order this regular meeting of the Minnehaha County Planning Commission, and I will begin with a few introductory comments. As a courtesy to everyone here tonight, please make sure that all cell phones have been silenced. Please note that tonight's Planning Commission meeting will be rebroadcast via CityLink and posted on the www.minnehahacounty.org site for viewing by the general public. Any final action taken on the conditional use permit applications tonight will take effect 5 working days following this meeting, unless a written appeal of the Planning Commission's decision is filed in the Planning Office by Tuesday, September 5th at 5 p.m. In the event of an appeal, the decision will be referred to the County Commission for a hearing on Tuesday, September 19th at or after 9 a.m. The affected parties will be notified of the meeting date, and meetings of the County Commission are held in this same room. Any action taken on the preliminary plan during the public hearing tonight is a recommendation that will be forwarded to the County Commission for another public hearing on Tuesday, September 19th at or after 9 a.m. Meetings of the County Commission are held in this same room. First item on the agenda is public input. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to an item that is not on the agenda? At this time, the Planning Commission will consider the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are perceived to be non-controversial and meet all of the requirements of the codes and regulations. The consent agenda will be acted on in one motion with no public hearing on the items unless a member of the public, the commission, or staff requests the item be removed from the consent agenda. The minutes from the July 24th, 2023 meeting are included in the consent agenda. Next, I'll read each item on the consent agenda and ask if there are any issues or comments from the Planning Commission or the audience. If any member of the Planning Commission or the audience would like to be heard on the item, please raise your hand and the item will be moved to the regular agenda to allow you to address the Commission later in the meeting. Any items remaining on the consent agenda will be approved by the Planning Commission with the conditions recommended by staff. Item number 1 on the consent agenda is the approval of the minutes of the July 24th, 2023 meeting. Item number 2 is conditional use permit 23-33 to exceed 3,600 square feet of accessory building area, requesting 4,300 square feet on the properties legally described as Tract 4A and 4B, Myers Addition, Northwest Quarter, Section 15, Township 103 North, Range 52 West. That is in Clear Lake Township. The petitioner and property owner is Jamie Bowen. Location at 45705 252nd Street. Does anyone from the audience or the Planning Commission wish to be heard on this item? Item number 3 is conditional use permit 23-34 to make one building eligibility available on the property legally described as Tract 2, Hanish's Addition. There is an exception of the east 1,152.9 feet, end of exception. Northeast Quarter, Section 29, Township 103 North, Range 52 West. That is also in Clear Lake Township. Petitioner and owners are Garrett's Living Trust. It's located approximately 4 miles north of Humboldt. Anyone from the audience or the Planning Commission wish to be heard on this item? Item number 4 is a preliminary subdivision plan 23-02 to allow the subdivision of Lot 20, High Prairie Ranch Addition, Northwest Quarter, Section 8, Township 102 North, Range 49 West. That is in Mapleton Township. Petitioner is David Rogness. Property owner is Dorothy Rognus. Location is southeast corner of the 257th Street and 473rd Avenue intersection. Does anyone from the audience or the Planning Commission wish to be heard on this item? Item number 5 is conditional use permit 23-38 to exceed 3,600 square feet of accessory building area, requesting 4,716 square feet on the property legally described as Tract 3, Bruns Edition, South Half, Section 15, Township 101 North, Range 48 West. That is a Split Rock Township. Petitioner is Justin Oakland. Property owner is Linda Wells. Location 26496 Bruns Place. Anyone from the audience or Planning Commission wish to be heard on this item? Number 6, a conditional use permit 23-39 to transfer one building eligibility from the northeast quarter, the northwest quarter, to the northwest quarter, northeast quarter, all within Section 18, Township 103 North, Range 48 West. That is in Edison Township. Petitioner is Dwayne Dygard. Property owner is Dorothy Dygard, approximately 4 miles southeast of Baltic. Anyone from the audience or the Planning Commission wish to be heard on this item? Item number 7 is conditional use permit 23-40 to transfer 2 building eligibilities from the northeast quarter, and the southeast quarter, the northeast quarter, to the northeast quarter, the southeast quarter, all within Section 31, Township 104 North, Range 48 West. That is in Logan Township. Petitioner is Dwayne Dygard. Property owner is Dorothy Dygard, approximately 4 miles southeast of Baltic. Anyone from the audience or the Planning Commission wish to be heard on this item? Sir? Okay, we will move that item to the consent agenda, or to the regular agenda, sorry. And that is item number 7. Item number 8 is conditional use permit 23-41 to transfer 1 building eligibility from the northeast quarter, the southeast quarter. There is an exception. In the south, 428.46 feet, and the east, 610 feet. End of exception. Section 16 to Tract 2, Kramer's Edition, northwest quarter, southwest quarter. Section 15, all in Township, or T 102 North, Range 48 West, Brandon Township. Petitioner and property owners are Dale and Shelley Trigg, located approximately 1 mile north of Brandon. Anyone from the Planning Commission or the audience wish to be heard on this item? Item number 9, conditional use permit 23-42 to transfer 1 building eligibility from Lot C, Calise Edition, to Lot B, Calise Edition, all in the southwest quarter, Section 5, Township 101 North, Range 48 West. That is in Split Rock Township. Petitioner and property owner is Kevin and Joyce Calise, and that is located approximately 1 mile southwest of Brandon. Anyone from the audience or the Planning Commission wish to be heard on this item? Okay, we have items 1 through 9, except number 7 has been removed to the regular agenda.
Madam Chair, I move approval of the consent agenda with the removal of number 7 to the regular agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve all of the items except number 7. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. If your item has been approved, you are free to go. Move on to the regular agenda. Number 7, Scott?
Thank you. I'll be addressing or giving you the staff report for item number 7 tonight. As you indicated, it is a conditional use permit, 2340, to transfer 2 building eligibilities in Logan Township. And the property is located approximately 4 miles east of Baltic at the intersection of 479th and County Highway 114. The applicant is requesting to move 2 building eligibilities to the south, and I'll show you on a map here. I think we have a map that shows that. The building eligibilities are being moved to accommodate a division of an estate. The areas in which the building eligibilities are now located are cropland, and the proposed move would move the building eligibilities closer to some residences, which are, I believe, family members to the south there. As you are aware, we look at specific criteria when it comes to building eligibilities. We look at the effect of the use and the enjoyment of the other properties in the area. There are several residences in this area. A right to farm notice covenant would be required to be placed on any potential buyers relative to having that parcel remain in an agricultural area. Number 2, we look at the effect upon the normal and orderly development and improvements of the surrounding vacant property for the uses predominant in the area. The transfer of 2 building eligibilities would not increase the number of dwelling units allowed in this section. The requested locations for the building eligibilities places them near other residentially used property. The access would have to be approved by Logan Township if they are going to be creating a new access or driveway onto 479th. The siting would have little or no impact or effect on the orderly development of the surrounding properties or the uses thereof. We look at the utilities. There is already a road that provides access to these parcels. It's likely that they would be able to obtain water from Minnehaha Community Water, and there is electricity in that area, so they could have access to electricity. We look at number 4, off-street parking. Typically, off-street parking is addressed when someone applies for a building permit for a house. There's a garage or a driveway in front of the house, which accommodates the 2 parking spaces that are required. Number 5, we look at are there measures or do there need to be measures taken to address odor, fumes, dust, vibrations, anything that might cause a nuisance. This proposed conditional use permit should not cause a nuisance. Transferring 2 building eligibilities isn't going to produce dust, fumes, or noise. And finally, we look at the health and safety, the general welfare, and the comprehensive plan. This should have no impact on the health and safety or the general welfare of the public. Placing building eligibilities will enhance the productivity of the rest of the quarter by preserving agricultural land. So with that in mind, with those 5 or 6 items addressed, staff finds that the conditional use permit is consistent with density zoning that we typically follow in the county, and places building eligibilities. The placement will potentially enhance the agricultural activities of this area. So we're recommending approval with 2 conditions: that a right to farm notice covenant be placed on the deed prior to the issuance of a building permit, and that approval from Logan Township would need to be obtained for the location of any new driveways before a building permit is issued. So I'll show you some pictures. It's primarily agricultural land, as you can imagine, and there are crops, but why don't we go through the pictures? So this is looking north, and you can, or south, you can see the crops. If you continue on, this is that farm. You can see the shelter belt of that farmstead that's to the south. And this is looking south back towards the county highway. And those are the pictures. I mean, it is just vacant agricultural land. So I'd be glad to answer any questions you have. Otherwise, there was someone that wanted to address you, and they're here in the audience.
Any questions for Scott?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Doug.
Scott, I just got a quick question here. I know it states in there, it's more than a mile from the nearest, whatever, from no feedlots within a mile. How close is the CAFO to directly south there? A mile and a half?
It's a mile and a half from there. It's quite a ways. That Van Dusen one?
Yep.
Yeah, it's a mile, 1 mile to the south.
Good. I just wanted that to be stated so people are aware there's a CAFO just a mile and a half to the south.
Yeah. Yeah, and a mile and then a little bit further to the
East.
west.
Or west, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, anything?
There's an existing CAFO there, Van Dusen CAFO, further to, way to the south. What's a CAFO? An animal feeding operation, feedlot.
Is the petitioner here? Will you please step forward and state your name and address?
Petitioner or
The petitioner, is he here?
You go up to the podium
Yes.
so they can. Oh, okay.
steady my legs? Dwayne Dugard. What else do you want?
Your address, please?
815 Harbor View Road, Hudson, Wisconsin. I'm not sure.
Are you, okay.
I'm the petitioner. I'm not sure what you're asking for.
Okay, do you have any idea why somebody is opposing this, or?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Or,
Okay, at this time, then I'll run down the chain of command, and we'll have somebody else come up that is.
okay,
Has some opposition.
okay.
Sir, you had some opposition? Would you please step forward and state your name and address?
My name's Darwin Dugard. I live at 47876 250th Street, Garrettson, South Dakota. I'm in the bottom corner, if you're looking at the eligibility, 2340. I'm the piece that's not outlined in red. And I guess one of my opposition points is moving those two eligibilities closer, for one reason. Number two, the eligibilities, there is some land down in that area that is not nearly as productive as some of the land further south, where they're being bumped to. And the land eligibilities, if they get bumped to the homestead or close to it, looking at the layout of the ditch and whatever, and when it comes down to it, I'll probably end up losing some right-of-way, some prime farmland. And I guess when it comes down to it, the reason they want to move it is because they don't want to just keep an eligibility quiet or just sit on it. And I guess that's about what I have. Okay?
Okay, this is a family estate, so, and I'm guessing you're all heirs in one way or another?
In one way or another?
Okay, so you're disputing about what he wants to do, is that correct?
In a way, yes, I am.
Okay.
And I live in the area, they don't. The ones that are gonna be buying the land up north don't live in the area, they haven't bought it yet, but they don't want the eligibilities on their land. They just want to push it off because they want to get the land cheaper.
Okay. Have you tried to come together with a discussion?
Yes,
between-
we have.
Okay, and that hadn't worked, probably, okay,
No.
okay. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else care to speak to this item?
Sorry, Grant Edgecombe, 26685 Dayspring. I just have a general question. When they move from where the word "from" is, down along 479th, do they change on the tax base from agricultural land to along a developed road? And will their taxes increase for the remainder of whether they are developed or undeveloped because they're along a road now? Does it change the tax base?
Scott, can you answer that, please?
So as you are aware, this is the planning department, not the director of equalization, and I don't want to speak on behalf of director of equalization. However, I would think it would be unlikely that there'd be any tax difference between whether it's located on a highway, a paved highway, or a gravel road. So I don't know if I can answer the question because it's not really pertinent to my department.
Anyone else care to speak to this item? Okay.
More to address his question, the building eligibilities are not moving down to the paved road. They're moving basically right to where you got says 10. So it's that quarter section that's just south of the 80. So it's, that red box will become nominally 80 acres, a 40 acre, and then another 40 acre. So it's going to be in the 40 acres that contains the original farmstead, which is roughly where that number 10 is on the map. So it's not moving to the paved road, it's still on the gravel road.
I think he means the word 2, not 10. So where it's moving to where it says 2.
Okay, you're right, yeah, word 2, okay, sorry.
Thank you. Okay, there's someone else wishing to speak to this? Commissioners?
I guess, Madam Chair, if I may, I'll try to say this tactfully. I know at times, family disputes can cause a lot of emotion. I don't know what what this panel is really embodied to do is get in between that. So if I simply look at this from a land use perspective, I do think it's appropriate to move those eligibilities from where they're at to where they're requesting. And I guess with that said, I will make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve conditional use permit 23-40. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. Okay, we'll move on to the other items on the regular agenda. And I'm going to make a couple comments because several of these items we have heard from before. I am going to allow 5 minutes of public comment per item. And I will not allow you to address the commission more than once. If you have a spokesperson, we may give you a little bit more than 5 minutes. But at this point, we want to hear if you have any further comments than what we've already heard. Mason, we'll start with number 10.
Yes, so item number 10 is conditional use permit 2331, which is a permit to exceed 1,600 square feet of accessory building area, requesting 3,240. On the address for the property is 25793 Country Lane. So this permit request was originally heard by the Planning Commission at the July meeting, where several neighbors were present and expressed their concerns with the size of the proposed accessory building. The main concern from this discussion was the potential snow removal issues on the property if the proposed building were to be constructed. At that meeting, the Planning Commission did decide to defer the item to today in order for the petitioner and the neighbors to work together to come to a conclusion on a smaller size of the structure. At the time of writing the staff report, that had not happened after contacting the petitioner. He had tried according to him, he had tried contacting the neighbors, but that there was no agreement, and as of the meeting today, that is also not changed. So I'll just go quickly through some of the pictures here so we can see where the property is. So this is Country Lane subdivision directly east of Renberg School here. And if we remember from the July meeting, there are several vehicles with dealer license plates on them currently, and these would be removed in order to build the building. And here is just some of the pictures of the subdivision. But otherwise, I'm available for any questions if you have them, and I'm not sure if the petitioner's here, but, oh, you're over there, okay.
Any questions for him? Guess not. Petitioner here. Please step forward, state your name and address.
Matt Lease, 25793 Country Lane.
So what's happened since the last meeting?
I've met with them. They're still, one of them is okay if I don't go too tall and as long as I have something to do with water drainage. So I've talked to Backus Construction about putting French drains in. They're still against the size of the building, I think, more or less. So I'm not sure what else to do after that. I mean, I've kind of met with a couple people. I've talked to the Reeves building guy. He's had some ideas. He was supposed to give me the building stuff, and he has not given me anything yet, so.
Has the size of the building and where you were going to place it still?
We haven't really discussed it. I mean, I've talked to them, and they're just, I think they're worried about the drainage and where the snow is gonna go, but I've talked to multiple people, and the Backus Construction, the Reeves building guy said there shouldn't be an issue, and if we have to, we can put the French drains in. So I guess I don't know as far as what would be wrong after that, if those guys are saying it's okay and that's what they do. The Roger at Backus, he's my neighbor, my car lot's on 12th Street, said he would probably suggest 3 French drains. And they're expensive, they're $5,000 a piece. So it's quite of an expense to appease everybody.
Anyone have any questions for him? I guess not at this time. Go ahead.
It was stated, or you stated it, the height of the building, has that changed?
Yeah, I was originally thinking of going 18, and I told the guy to the south I would go 14 or 16. So I've worked on that, I guess. But as far as the size go, I've met them all each once for a little bit each time. So we just haven't really met that much. So
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for him? Thank you.
okay, thank you.
Anyone in the audience care to address this item? Don?
Good evening, Commission. Don Oschlager, 6705 North 10th Avenue, representing Mapleton Township, the road that is in front of the property. We spoke against the size of the building last time because of the potential water damage that coming off that building. The road is below where the building will be built, so I understand he wants to do French drains. I don't know much about those, but I would ask the Commission to ask the petitioner to do an engineering study and to have a plan in place prior to putting up a building of that size, that close to a road that's directly downhill. The petitioner last year pushed snow across the road into the opposite ditch and left a pretty big mess in that ditch. That's not gonna help. Of course, everyone knows what the winter was like, so he's gonna have no place on his own property to put the snow. Where this building was, I think if, where it was, is where some of the snow was going until he ran out of room. So I would just like to see an engineering study or something some water retention, because there's gonna be a lot of water coming off that metal roof, and it's gonna come right down across that road, wash that road right into the east ditch. So as a township, that's our position, was then and is now, so I'd like you to please consider that. Okay, any questions for me?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience care to address this item? Please step forward, state your name and address.
Dennis Seivert, 25795 Country Lane, just south of the petitioner. Yeah, Matt, he come out and talked to us a little bit. He didn't really have a whole lot to say because he hadn't had a chance to talk to the building contractor or anything like that for height and pitch of the roof We're concerned with the lights ourselves, even the lights. When we look out our windows, we want to look out and see what's going on and what we got to look at and why we're looking there, and not have lights blinding us back that we can't see. Petty thing maybe, but still, we want to know what's going on around there, and we don't need to light it up to do that because that blinds us from seeing. Same thing with the water. My property is lower than his, so when it comes off that metal roof, what ain't going toward the road is gonna come and sit in my backyard. And, you know, I've lived there 31 years, I've never had any water back there for any reason. I don't even own a sump pump, so I'm a little concerned with the water a lot, because once it's there, now it becomes my problem. So his building construction now costs me money to fix my property so I can get rid of that water, and it shouldn't be that way. We shouldn't have to remodel the neighborhood to fit a building. You know, I understand Matt wants a building, I'm not against the building, but 3,000 square foot on that size of an acreage, we got 6 neighbors and all 6 of us are against it for that size of a building. And Matt's got some answers for some of this stuff with his French drain and so forth. How well it'll work, I don't know. It's like Don mentioned with the engineer study, probably a very good idea. Get somebody there that can talk more about it in an educated manner than us guessing and wondering if that'll work or not. You know, Matt's wasn't sure on the height of the building. That's a concern. At this point, I can't really think of anything else that hasn't already been mentioned that I'll just double talk back on, so I don't, I guess, I'm done. When Matt gets more information, that will help us out to work with him a little bit. He seems to be workable with it. So I think there's answers for this, but perhaps maybe a smaller building. We can talk that over with Matt, maybe a smaller building to help him out a little bit. Be a little bit easier for everybody to handle, it be less water to handle. I don't know, the natural drain for that place is to the north, and it's gonna be a lot of work to drain water to the north than that now, because a long time ago, the road was moved and that little hump is laying there, so it would be a lot of work to do that, but I guess that's all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Please step forward, state your name and address.
Jordan Dvorak, 25789 Country Lane. Yeah, so here for the same reason. We're still concerned with the size. I actually called Matt. Matt didn't reach out to me. Not that that really matters, but still there was another issue, and I'm still not. The size is just daunting. It's huge, 3,240 square feet. I think it's excessive. I don't think there's enough answers for the water drainage. Even if there is, I just think it's going to be an excessive amount of water, whether going across the road or either side. I just don't think anyone's going to really know what it can do. I'm very much, I've kind of stated, I'm very fine with the building. It just needs to be in my mind, a reasonable size. So I don't feel like the conversations have progressed really anywhere close to fast enough to really get to this meeting today to help, have something. So I guess I'd like to see it denied for now until we could really, actually have a good conversation, get us all together, maybe talk rather than one off here, one off there conversations with all the neighbors. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Will the petitioner please come to the podium again? You hear some of the comments. Would you be willing to do an engineering study because of the roadway?
My understanding is if Reeves Building puts up the building, he has to do that as part of getting the permit. So that would be required anyway, I believe. And as far as somebody not having a professional opinion, they do put buildings up on a daily basis probably. And as far as Roger doing it, he's been here for 50 years doing this stuff. So there's definitely professional opinions that have been given as far as the drainage and not having issues. Roger said that 3 French drains should be installed. He's looked at the site and done all of that. And Reeves has been there, but he has not given me anything as far as the building goes.
Anybody have any questions for him?
Madam Chairman, I just want to clarify that these steel structure buildings like Morton or Clary, the buildings are engineered, but they don't do engineering studies on like drainage, because that's very site specific. I just want to make sure you're clear on that. That the buildings might be engineered, but they're not doing site engineering for every single building that's constructed, these metal buildings.
Thanks, Scott. I wasn't aware of that.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Doug.
Matt, you know, I'm getting old. I'm not the smartest guy around, but what is a French drain?
I believe what he does is he comes in with equipment. He does 3 foot wide, 11 feet deep, puts some P rock down there. There's some kind of black tube, like with holes in it, and it disperses the water down into the ground. That's kind of what he explained to me.
Okay, well, thank you. I wasn't clear on that.
I went to him and he explained what needed to be done. And then Reeves also had some ideas too, but he still has never given me anything for the building stuff.
So if we would ask you to have an engineer do a drainage study, would you be?
No, I wouldn't be against that.
Okay, good.
Nope.
Any other further questions for him? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else care to address the item? Okay, I'm going to close the floor. Petitioners or commissioners?
Madam Chair,
Becky?
I think technically we have to have a motion on the floor for discussion. So for the sake of discussion, I'm going to move to deny the request.
I'll second for the purpose of discussion.
Okay. I have a motion second to deny conditional use permit 23-31. Further discussion. Go ahead.
I'm really concerned about the size of the building, and the location. We have the road concerned about it. So I don't think that this is a good location. At the very least, there should probably be an engineering study. But even so, I think maybe we've got a small lot with drainage problems that it's just not the right location.
Any other further discussion?
Madam Chair,
Joe?
I would just basically echo those sentiments. I just don't know that, especially when this is the second time this body is hearing this issue. I know I missed last month, so it's new to me. And, but I would have concerns that not enough progress was made when this body gave another month of time to discuss the issue, and I don't know that enough compromise or common ground was found. I think we're talking about, at least we're getting to a core issue of the drainage, but I would still have some deference to our township representative and some protection for the road. So until those questions were answered, I'm not really comfortable providing an approval. So I would be leaning towards a denial at this point.
Any other further comments? It's always difficult. I've sat on a township board too for many years. You have those drainage problems and it's difficult to fix them. And the smaller or the larger they get, the worse they are to fix. And we need to start from the beginning rather than approve something that may cause a lot of problems down the road. Okay, any further discussion from the commissioners? I have a motion on the floor for denial for conditional use permit 23-31. All those in favor of the denial?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 10 has been denied. Move on to item number 11. That's a recall and review of the conditional use permit to allow a gun club sportsman club. On the property legally described as Track 1, Northwest Quarter, and Track 1 of Garrettson Gun Club Edition. Northwest Quarter, all in Section 33, Township 103 North, Range 47 West, Palisades Township. Property owner and the petitioner is Garrettson Sportsman's Club, 48605, 255th. Kevin?
Good evening, I'm Kevin Hookman from the County Planning Department. So to bring you a kind of a review of this request, the Planning Commission heard this first and items in the public on May 22nd, 2023 of this year, where Dean Sands, a neighboring property owner, had raised concerns about ricocheting bullets and safety of the club. Staff visited the site on June 9th and reported back to the Planning Commission on June 26th meeting. On the June 26th meeting, the Planning Commission voted to bring the conditional use permit 0607 to a public review for this month. Since that time, in the meeting of June 26, the Garrettson Sportsman's Club hired a range technical team from the NRA to review the conditions of the outdoor rifle range. The report was made available to you. The report made no suggestions regarding the physical conditions of the range. The major suggestion, or the suggestion that was made, was that a written maintenance, operations, safety, and environmental plan should be made for the club. The conclusion of the report notes that due to concrete construction, baffles, and the use of closed-circuit cameras at each shooting position, projectile escapement from the rifle or pistol ranges is unlikely. I have listed on this report the 4 conditions of the club. The club has been meeting these conditions of the site being platted, the parking spaces, the shooting hours from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., and that the approved uses of the conditional use permit are a shooting range and events associated with the gun club. Here we are at our hearing. All neighbors within 500 feet of the property have been notified of this hearing. This is the hearing for a recall and review. At a recall and review hearing, the Planning Commission has the authority to amend, revise, delete, or add conditions to the conditional use permit. They also have the authority to revoke the conditional use permit for failure to comply with terms, conditions, or requirements of the permit. And I do have photos available of the site that I went to from the June 9th visit. My understanding is that since this visit, the sand is now complete and covering up the hillsides there. But just as kind of a reminder, the concrete bunkers. And this is me standing at the 200-yard range. This is from the rifle location on the bench, looking down the 200-yard range. And then there's the signs posted for hours of operation. So I'll go back to the main site picture. So I believe that there are representatives from the gun club here present, and it's open to the public for a hearing. Is there any questions?
Questions for him? Not this time. Is the petitioner here? Please step forward and state your name and address.
Chuck Brown, 48165 259th Street, Brandon. We hired I would assume you guys all got the report that the NRA sent us, and we met with him. He looked over the whole range, and this is a guy that goes throughout the whole country and looks at ranges everywhere. And he recommended us to do really nothing to the range. He thought everything looked awesome. He thought it was, and one of the things he said, and this is what he said, overall, your facility is one of the best I've ever seen, and it is a valuable asset worth protecting. I mean, this is an expert that came out, looked at the range, and I mean, he does this for a living, so he knows what he's doing. And we have taken every step to minimize ricochets, whatever there is, and we will continue to do that. And we put the sand up there, which is, I believe, really helped. And I mean, if there's any suggestions from anybody that would improve it even more, we're willing to do that. And I guess I think the report speaks for itself. So that's all I have.
Anyone else care to speak to this item? Please step forward, state your name and address.
My name is Dean Sands, 25531 486th Avenue. I'm glad to hear that the NRA has looked at it. And that was going to be part of my presentation tonight a little bit. I'm the neighbor who's been shot at, who's experienced the ricochets. Shot at's too strong. But it feels like it when you're hearing the guns go off and you know, 6 times in the last 10 years there's been ricochets. 4 of them that I've documented, 2 of them that the club has documented in their minutes. The NRA puts out a source book. They don't do range design, but they give clubs guidance on how to proceed with doing their range. The first thing they would like the club to do would be to develop a business plan and a range master plan. And when this range started out, or the rifle range started out a few years ago, it was just benches and berms and targets. There was no baffles, and all those things have been gradually added on there to make the range safer. I don't think the members of the clubs are experts enough to design a range that can contain bullets based on my experience. My request would be to have the club abide by, there's another thing in the range source book that talks about the 4 E's of range design: evaluate, engineer, educate, and enforcement. Evaluate is basically how you're going to use the range, who shoots there, when, types of calibers, that kind of thing. Engineering would be the part that the NRA maybe has addressed in that report that I haven't seen. Educate would be to tell the members about and the users about your safety plan and the range rules. And enforcement would be to have somebody there to enforce that those rules are carried out. Last number I saw was in 2017, there was over 1,100 members at that club. And I can attest to there's constant shooting at that range. It's heavy use, which is good if it's safe. But I don't know that there's any education, and I know that there's up to date, there's been little enforcement of the rules other than cameras that can be watched remotely, and me. I've got a card for the club, and I can walk up there and ask people to leave. But most ranges, including the range by Brandon, if there's live shooting, there's a range master there to ensure safety rules are carried out. And with that many memberships, plus all the amount of day pass users that can come in there, it would seem like common sense that you would have somebody there to monitor the safety that's happening while the shooting is going on. I think that anyone in this room, if you lived where I lived and experienced what I experienced, would have the same concerns. Whether you belong to the club or whether you're a member of the board or a member of the audience. All I want is safety for my property, my family, and all you should want is the safety of County Road 105 where all the traffic is going up and down. I would ask that you would require some more planning on the behalf of the range. I don't want the range shut down. I want it safe. But I would ask that you would have the range do some more planning. Follow through some more on their safety, to man the range with a range master during operating hours. And I would ask that this conditional use permit would be granted if those further things are met. And there again, it's the four E's of range design. It's right in the NRA source book for ranges. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Tom Brown, 48036 259th Street, Brandon, South Dakota. I'm a lifetime member up there. Club's been in effect since 1952. We've did a lot of changes to make it safer. Everything we've done has been okayed by you guys, but we went far beyond that. We put the cement barriers and stuff on there so that when you're shooting down the range, you can't lift your gun up because it'll hit the bullet will hit the top of the range, so it deflects the bullet down. And this gentleman, he knew when he bought that house that this was a rifle range and a gun club. I mean, that's why we shoot up there, you know. So he knew what he was getting into. I mean, we're trying to make it safe so there is no ricochets or anything, but if, like I live quite a ways from Houston Speedway, a lot of nights I think that's right in my backyard. Depends on the way the wind and stuff coming. So if there's a ricochet at the club itself, it might sound like it's right at his house, but it's actually not. And I think Kevin did a study on the ricochets that he showed me when I was in his office. Can we see that, Kevin? The ricochets you showed me when I was in your office, where it showed coming down, it was 5 point some percent, and over by his house was 16 point some percent.
I didn't do any study. I just measured distances.
Okay, but
I didn't do any study. I just measured distances. It was, I can't remember what distance.
I thought you said you looked it up and that's what,
I'm not a range guide. I just measured distances. That's all I did.
well, that's not what you told me when I was in your office. I got another guy that was with me that verified the same thing.
You can find an expert to figure out what the percentages are.
Well then, where did you find the percentages?
I just looked at the angle and there's something, I did my own research, but I am not an expert. I did not do a study.
That's not what
Let's
I was
move
told.
on.
Okay. But we do try to make it safe. We do have range people up there too, every weekend, Saturday and Sunday, until it closes. And so we do have people up there. During the week, we don't. But during the weekends, when it's the busiest, that's when we have that. And it isn't, we have quite a few members. They aren't all rifle people. We shoot clay pigeons and I have an indoor pistol range up there. So there's not 100%. Everybody's down there on the rifle range. I guess that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Anyone else care to speak on this item? Please step forward, state your name and address. Sir, didn't you already speak?
Yeah.
You can't speak? No, you can't do it again. Sorry.
I think he did leave his cell phone on the podium though. Did you leave your cell phone? I did.
Okay, anyone else? Yes, you can step forward and state your name and address.
My name is Steve Davis. My address is 27308 Meadow Ridge Road. That's in Lincoln County. When Dean approached us in 2007, maybe, 17, I was president of the club at that time. This gentleman that came from the NRA, he and I were teammates on our training for the NRA. So Dean saying that we don't have any experts is not exactly true. There really are no experts in range design. You can hire people. There's architects and engineers. They have degrees behind their name, but there's no real expert. The NRA does have very extensive experience, as you might imagine, with ranges and their range technical team, which I was a range technical team advisor at one time, and I was asked to do this evaluation. I declined because of my association with the club. The range is very, very safe. The only way you could really make it safer is by having an indoor range. I'm only aware of one of those anywhere in the Midwest, and that's in Fargo. But that's not what the conditional use permit was originally issued for. As far as the number of people that shoot, we have a tremendous number of members, because I also did the computer work on the membership. And I can tell you that we have about 1,000 members that come out and shoot maybe twice a year when they sight in their deer rifle in late September, October, and November. The rest of the year, we have the other 200 or so members that shoot. We have some members that shoot almost every day. We have members that shoot once or twice a week, once a month, etc. But we don't have 1,300 or 1,200 members shooting every day or every weekend. We have day passes that are issued. Those are required to be issued. The state has given us money, Game Fish and Parks, to make improvements to the range. We are required to have public access, so we're required to have those day passes in use. Those people are not members. We have really very limited control of who can use the range. Speaking to the range officer being present, we have range officers, and we have for, I believe, how long? A year or more? We've had range officers up there every weekend, and that's when the range is by far the busiest. The range officers have kicked people out. They do stop people from doing stupid things. The club has a policy of no shooting of trash, and that's where you get a lot of ricochet potential. People put something on the ground and they shoot at it. And we have a policy, no shooting anything off the ground. You must use paper targets mounted on the target carriers, which are directly in front of, as you saw, the sand backstop. I can tell you that a sand backstop is the absolute best material you can use for a backstop, unless you have an indoor range. There are other products, but they don't work on an outdoor range. So I don't know what else we could do to make the range safer. I do agree, it would be great to have an operating manual. It would be great to have an overall business plan. But the club has been in operation since 1952. And they've never had one. And we are probably, to the best of my knowledge, we are the most financially stable club anywhere in the area. Thank you.
Anyone else care to address this item? I'm going to close the floor. Commissioners?
Actually, Madam Chair, could I ask one question of the applicant, or the current holder of the conditional use permit? Come on up. I know your existing conditional use permit provides for hours of operation, or the outdoor shooting take place between the hours of 7 a.m. and 11 p.m. But I also read something in the packet that there's some dispute over shooting after sunset or at darkness? What's the club's policy on that?
Well, our hours are actually 8 to 8 on weekdays, 8 to 6 on weekends.
Okay.
You occasionally get people that come in, and then what it is the doors lock at 6, but if you're in, you can get out. So if they're in, some stay a little longer than they should. We don't approve of that, and we have kicked them out. I have caught members there with Dean, and I have actually took them out of the membership. They're gone because they violated our rules, and we got rid of them. And so actually, we're below the rules that you guys set for us. So, I mean,
And then can you help me understand the video camera system in the sense of what value add to the safety does that add? Is there someone monitoring that station?
It's the same with, you go to the store or whatever, you're on camera all the time, so it makes you more honest, I would say. So because if we catch somebody violating the rules on the cameras, we actually do see that, we record it, we go back, look at it, and again, we have kicked people out of there and took their memberships away because of that reason. So that's why, it's 24 hours a day that it's being watched. Oh, the target cameras, is that what you're talking about?
I was talking about both. That was going to be my follow-up question,
okay.
actually, is what's the purpose of the target camera? I get the kind of deterrent effect of watching the people,
Okay.
but then the
Well,
targets.
the target cameras, there's a target down, say 100 yards. There's a camera down there with a monitor up close, so when a person shoots, he sees where he hits.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess safety-wise, maybe it's, he sees that he's off to the right. He doesn't have to shoot, 4 more times to see that he's not on his target. So it gets him to, get on his target sooner than, to have to walk way down there. Because normally somebody will shoot 3-4 rounds, then go down there and look. This way they shoot once and they can see that, they're not on the target, so.
Okay, that's helpful. That's all I had, ma'am.
Madam
Go
Chair, I
ahead.
have a couple questions. So, to build off what Joe said, are the tapes routinely monitored? Like, does somebody review some of those tapes once a week or every 2 weeks or anything? Or is it just if you think there's a problem, somebody looks at the tape?
Well, probably when we hear that there's a problem, then we review them. But in our system, we know everybody that goes in, their name, so we can look that up. So whenever we see somebody that was in there late, we do go back, review that to see, what were they in there for, why they were in there late. So, yeah, actually don't have it where we just review it every week, so.
You said that you've kicked people out. You've had, I'm sorry. You've kicked people out and had consequences if there was a problem. Are those written or are they decided by a board, or how are those determinations made?
Well, I guess as a board members, our authority as board members, we decide if somebody violates our rules. We don't really vote on it. They violated the rule, so any of the board members can kick them out.
I'm sorry, I have so many questions. I have one more. Where do you think those ricochets might have come from? Do you think it was that the sand, not having all the sand on the back? Or-
No, it can be, okay, we put those concrete barriers in there so if somebody maybe possibly hit the concrete barrier, it could be a ricochet. So it drives that ricochet into the dirt where it's supposed to go, keeps it from getting out. And then, we could have a ricochet maybe on the 25-yard line because if they hit the ground and it ricochets and goes up into the sand. And so at that time, you hear a ricochet, and a ricochet is very, it's intense noise, so it's easy to hear. But a lot of times, you hear ricochet, doesn't mean it left our property. So it's the range designed to keep the ricochets in there.
That's it. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close the floor now. Commissioners?
I guess, Madam Chair, since I was the one that kind of put up the big stink last time to repeal this, I guess I'll be the one to maybe say a few comments. The one thing I said last time was I'm not a gun expert. I enjoy shooting rifles, but by no means do I know how to design a rifle range either. We did ask them to go out and get an expert's opinion. And if I believe it at face value that there aren't experts, who would next to default to other than the NRA? And I do feel like they, more than I guess, they've did exactly what we asked them to do. If I were to add any additional comment or any additional conditions, I would just say that they follow the recommendations of the NRA recommendation and leave it at that. So I guess I'll like to hear everyone else's comments too, but.
Anybody else have a comment?
Madam Chair,
Joe?
I would echo those sentiments. I think that was going to be the proposal that I was going to float, was just that we appreciate the gun club seeking out this formal report that now I think they have a little bit of reliance on, but I think they can only rely on it to the point that they follow its recommendations. And I think it's probably in our best interest to ask them to continue their good faith operations, that they're doing what we're asking them to do, just by following through and having some written policies and procedures as suggested in that plan. I think that will also help in future disputes. If other issues arise in the future, that they'll be able to point back to those policies rather than just speaking to general practice.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Madam Chair. I'd just like to echo what everybody else has said. I do think this is good, though, just to get it out in the public, so the public is aware of what goes on. The gun club's doing everything that they possibly can, which is hats off to you guys for doing that. But it's just, a neighbor, I would be pretty scared too if I had something coming through my property and hitting a building or whatnot. But the gun club's doing everything that they possibly can, so hats off to you guys.
Anyone else? I pretty much agree. You pretty much complied with what we asked of you to do. So,
I guess, Madam Chair, I can put this into motion form and see if I'm on track here. But I think we have the power to amend or add a condition. So I guess my motion would be to add a condition that the club, consistent with their recent range evaluation report, create written maintenance, operations, safety, and environmental plans.
okay, that was your motion?
Yes, just to add that amendment, but otherwise keep all other aspects of the conditional use permit in place.
I'll second.
Okay. I have a motion and second. Do you recall our review of our conditional use permit 06-07? Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Move on to item number 12, conditional use permit 23-43 to allow a rubble dump or its tree guiding operation. Property legally described as the northwest quarter. There is an exception, R-1, an exception of the south half, northwest quarter, and except the east 17 feet, the west 50 feet, that's end of exception. Section 35, Township 101 North, Range 51 West, Wallach Township, Mueller Pallets, property owner Pine Knoll Incorporated, located at the intersection of 267th and 464 Avenue, 4 miles west of Sioux Falls. Mason?
Yes. Good evening, Commissioners. Mason Steffen from the County Planning Office. So as explained, this request would be to allow a rubble dump or a tree grinding operation on the subject property. This request is largely the same as Mueller Pallet's previous request earlier this year on the same property, but this request includes a site plan that has access to the site via 267th Street instead of 464th Avenue. The previous request was withdrawn by the petitioner at the County Commission meeting on August 15th due to the City of Sioux Falls not providing access onto 464th Avenue. The narrative for this request explains that this site would be used to collect trees, tree branches, dimensional lumber, and other non-treated wood from the public in order to grind the wood and move to an off-site location. The hours of operation listed in the narrative are Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Saturday from 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. The petitioner has also explained that there will be a gate and entrance to the property along with a guard shack and security system, which will help limit concerns with any unlawful dumping. Additionally, the County Highway Department has informed planning staff that they will require the petitioner to hire a professional engineer to complete a traffic impact study of the area in order for the petitioner to utilize the access, this study will help determine what the petitioner will need to do in terms of improvements on the highway in order to safely utilize the existing access. Finally, the State Department of Ag and Natural Resources has explained to planning staff that there will not need to be any permits obtained through their office for this request, given that there will be no alterations to or filling of wetlands that are present on the property. On August 7th, I did conduct a site visit of the property, and this property is a 77-acre piece of ground located north of the Sioux Falls Regional Landfill. And this request would use approximately a 15-acre piece on the west side over here using this existing access right here. There is an existing shelter belt of trees on the property which would help screen the operation from the neighbors to the north. Finally, allowing this operation on a vacant agricultural lot will allow for a sustainable disposal site of natural wood products that will be located in close proximity to the existing regional landfill. And then for every conditional use permit, there are 6 criteria that we look at to evaluate the conditional use permit. And I will go through those here. So number 1 is the effect upon the use and enjoyment of the property in the immediate vicinity for the uses already permitted and upon property values in the immediate vicinity. There is an existing residential subdivision to the northeast of the property that includes approximately 50 dwellings. You can see the western portion of it here. This subdivision was subdivided prior to density zoning and is located in the agricultural production area of the county where new housing is now limited to the available building eligibilities. The proposed operation is also located directly north of the existing landfill, and a majority of the traffic that will travel to this proposed operation is already traveling to this existing landfill. Finally, the required traffic impact study for the operation will help determine what traffic issues this operation may cause and what improvements the petitioner will need to make in order to limit these traffic concerns. Number 2 is the effect upon the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding vacant properties for uses predominant in the area. As explained, this property is in the agricultural production area of the county, and the main vacant land in the area is currently used for agricultural uses. Any development on these agricultural lands would be limited to the available building eligibilities in the area, given that it is located in the ag production area. And the proposed rubble dump should not overly impact any development on these vacant agricultural land. Number 3, that utilities, access roads, drainage, and/or other necessary facilities are provided. The site plan indicates that the operation will be accessed by an existing access onto the county highway. And I'll scroll down to the site plan here so we can see that. So that is the purple line off of 267th Street there. And as explained several times in the past, the petitioner will be required to hire a professional engineer to do a traffic impact study and submit that to the County Highway Department for review before they may utilize that access. Additionally, the site plan indicates that the petitioner will be providing all the other necessary facilities, including a sign, outdoor lighting, a fuel tank, and an outdoor toilet. And finally, the driveway into the operation will have a gated entry, which will limit concerns with any unauthorized dumping, as explained earlier. Number 4, that the off-street parking and loading requirements are met. With this type of operation, a majority of the traffic to the site will be for deliveries and pickups, and the applicant should provide a truck turnaround point with the proposed rubble dump, within the proposed rubble dump site. Additionally, the petitioner will need to provide employee parking, which you can see in the top left of the site here. And they will need to provide at least 2 parking spaces per 3 employees on the maximum shift for the operation. And the site is large enough to handle this amount of parking. Number 5, that measures are taken to control offensive odor, fumes, dust, noise, vibration, and lighting. Lighting inclusive of lighted signs, so that none of these will constitute a nuisance. The grinding and processing of trees will create noise and dust that could have the potential to disturb the single-family dwellings that are located to the northeast. The nearest dwelling is across the road, directly across the road from the driveway, which will be the house that will be the most affected by this operation. However, limiting the hours of operation to 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. on the weekdays and 7 to noon on the weekend should limit concerns with this becoming a nuisance to the surrounding property owners for extended periods of time. And then finally, again, the traffic impact study, as mentioned several times, will help determine what traffic impacts it will have and limit those traffic impacts. Number 6, that the health, safety, and general welfare of the public in the comprehensive plan. The wood processing will only take place on the site in a limited amount of days. So most of the time on this site, it'll just be used as a site for people to come and drop off the wood. And then on limited days throughout each month, Mueller will come in, grind for several days straight, take off the wood, and then that'll be the only time that wood is being grinded on the site. And then again, there are the existing shelter belt of trees on the north side of the property, which do help to screen the proposed operation. And this property is located in close proximity to the existing landfill, which will provide citizens with a alternative location to dispose of untreated wood products. And given that this property is located in the ag production area and with its close proximity to the landfill, it does not, it conforms to the 2035 Envisioned Comprehensive Plan. With that, staff does recommend approval of conditional use permit 2343 with the following conditions. And I will read through the 12 conditions here just so we have them if we need to discuss them. So condition number 1 is that the property shall adhere to the submitted site plan, which is on the screen. Number 2, that the process of grinding wood shall only take place during the hours of 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday and 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Saturdays. Number 3, that only clean, untreated, unpainted, and unstained wood shall be accepted for processing. No other material shall be accepted. Number 4, that the petitioner shall hire a professional engineer to complete a traffic impact study for the operation, and this study must be submitted to the County Highway Department for review. The traffic impact study must be approved by the Minnehaha County Highway Department, and any highway improvements must be completed prior to operations beginning on the site. Number 5, that the petitioner shall be required to apply for an access permit from the County Highway Department prior to the operations beginning on the property. Number 6, that all driveways, including loading and unloading areas, shall be gravel surfaced. These areas are also required to be treated with a dust control agent and maintained in a manner to limit the production of dust from the gravel surfaces. Number 7, that a building permit shall be required for any buildings built in conjunction with the tree grinding operation. Number 8, that one on-premise sign shall be permitted and shall not exceed 32 square feet in size. A building permit must be obtained prior to installation, and the sign may not be located within the right-of-way. Number 9, that the operation shall maintain a gate or a person on the site during drop-off hours to prevent the dumping of non-wood products. Number 10, that no parking shall be allowed within the public right-of-way at any time. Number 11, that the operation shall be allowed to operate under the conditions of this permit until January 31st, 2033. The business owner will be required to obtain another conditional use permit before this date if they wish to continue operating at this location. And number 12, that the Planning and Zoning Department reserves the right to enter and inspect the site at any time after proper notice to the owner to ensure that the property is in full compliance with the conditional use permit conditions of approval and the Minnehaha County zoning ordinance. And then with that, I'll just quickly go through the site pictures. So this is looking to the northeast from, I am standing where the proposed access would have been on 464th Avenue if the city of Sioux Falls would have approved access. So this is looking to the northeast, and this clearing in the trees right here will be the driveway that is currently on this site plan that we are looking at tonight. So here's looking to the south, and you can see there's wetland area to the southwest, and this part of the property is specifically excluded from the site plan, but as explained earlier, since there is no alterations to or filling of this wetland, there are no state permits required. Here's looking at the current conditions of the access. As you can see, it's a farm access, so it would require several improvements in order to make it usable for this operation. And then here's looking back to the north. This is what it looks like up onto the county highway there. And then here's looking directly east back towards Sioux Falls. And here I'm standing on the access, and you can see the closest house right here is directly across the street. And there's another picture of the house. And with that, I'll go back up to the site plan, and I'm available for any questions that you may have.
Any questions for him?
Madam Chair,
Joe?
I would ask, I appreciate your work on this, Mason. I have some questions on the practical impact of these recommendations. One of my biggest concerns is the traffic aspect, as you alluded to multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm getting your conditions right, your recommendation of approval with the following conditions, would that be out of our hands as a body at that point? Would it basically be solely up to, the way I read this is the county highway department would assess whether that traffic impact study, basically all aspects of that traffic impact study, and grant that's in number 4, and then number 5, apply for an access permit from the county highway department. I guess my concerns are if this body doesn't understand what the traffic impact is going to be, is it premature to sign off on this and just hand over that authority to the highway superintendent, if you follow my logic?
Sure. So in talking with the highway superintendent, Steve Groen, I guess, he, at this time, understanding what exactly, that is kind of the point of the condition number 4, is to understand what is needed to mitigate the traffic. And that will include, in this case, it'll also include traffic to the landfill. It won't necessarily, how this operation will impact the traffic in this entire area, which will include the impact on the landfill. And I guess neither I nor Steve Groen can say that without having that professional review. So I guess the control that you have is requiring the professional review, and then trusting that the highway department will require everything before they will give an access permit. And that's what we would normally do for, let's say, a house. With those other transfers we've had, we say you must obtain a driveway permit from the proper road authority. And so we then, in that case, would give it off to the road authority of, you work with the road authority on exactly how the driveway is approved on that site. So in this case, it'd be the same thing. We're saying you need to work with the county highway department and determine what they will require based on the engineering study to use the access. So I don't know if that answers the question, but.
That's sufficient for now. Thanks, Mason.
Anyone else have any questions for him?
Madam Chair, can I ask
Hi, Doug.
one question? Mason, I know you're a youngster. Do you have any idea, or do you have information on that housing development was started? What year?
I believe I found a plat from the 70s. I don't know the exact year. It was the 70s and 80s was when they, the Country Village first and the Country Village.
Started in 1978.
Okay. So the Country Village first edition would have been that 78, and then the second edition, this Day Spring Circle, would have been later in the 80s. And then just for more information, in the mid-90s, the county did receive a petition to rezone that to rural residential to meet what it is. Because when it was subdivided, density, as explained, density zoning didn't exist. So it was subdivided before we had control with building eligibilities. And then when we did get control with building eligibilities and our current zoning ordinance in the 90s, we did zone it to meet what it actually is as a rural subdivision. So it was rezoned to rural residential in 1996, I believe.
Okay, thank you. And one other question. What year did the Sioux Falls landfill start out there?
So the first conditional use permit was from 1978, and that was Runge and the Sioux Falls started that together. And then in 1995, the city of Sioux Falls took over full control and expanded. And then the last expansion was in 2001. So that was the last conditional use permit on that site, and those are the 3 conditional use permits, but it started in 1978.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay,
Correction, actually, we moved out there in 76. And there was about 6 or 8, around a dozen houses open at the time.
okay. Is the petitioner here? Please step forward and state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Margaret Muller from Muller Pallets, 27059 Muller Place, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I run Muller Pallets. In 2007, a customer came to me and we decided to go ahead and do a huge recycling project. Part of that recycling project was making wood chip fuel. At that time, we had a grinder in a building. We were doing approximately 60 to 80 tons a week, which is basically 3 semi-loads. So anyways, we were pretty small potatoes. This customer came and we started looking at landfills and how we could get their boiler to process this and to divert wood chip fuel and to take away their natural gas. So anyways, since then, we are now doing over 1,000 tons per week. We go into landfills all over 3 states. We do tornado damage. So we've really saved a lot of these landfills from you having to build onto their landfills. And that's the problem we have here, because May 22nd, we shut down our T site. It was right off the T exit. I'm sure you guys all know where it was. A lot of people used our site. Like I said before, I don't have to go through the whole story again, but the lady died and they want to develop that land. I'm still looking for options. This one obviously is still on the table. I do have HDR taking a look at it. So anyways, we did shut down our site. And Mr. Edgecombe, I know he's here, he's the representative of the opposition group. You know, and I have nothing against their group. I think it's great to have some opposition as well as competition. So I'd like to hear everyone's ideas, and he went down to a council member thing at City Hall, and they gave him the 3 minutes at the end, and he said, I want to be involved. So I do have my attorneys with me tonight, so I asked my attorney, Paul Cheddar, can I call Grant? And he said, absolutely. So I called Mr. Edgecombe. We talked for about 37 minutes. He's very angry about a lot of things. I thought our talk went really, really well. I said, you want to be involved? Let me help you. You can be involved. That was June 15th. I haven't heard a word from his group. I'm not at war with them. I did see a Facebook, or not a Facebook, but a internet post over the weekend that I feel is quite disturbing. And I'm not at war with anyone. I'm just trying to earn an honest living. I've heard kind of negatives about the company that I am doing business with. I have over 450 companies that I do business with. But we did talk about one and how they don't give back and they take from the government and everything else. And they do wonderful things for this community. And they have saved this landfill a lot of land over the last 16 years. So I have to tell the company that I do wood chips for, they've done a lot for this community. And we've saved a lot of people in this community money. Businesses and just your regular households. I don't know if this is the right location. We were in talks with the city until Monday of last week, and I will turn it over to my lawyer from here on out. And we've got Paul Cheddar and Matt Murphy as my legal team. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. I will do my best to keep my comments very short. If you'll think back to April 24th, we were all here, many of the same faces, discussing many of the same issues. I think the only two things that I want to make clear to the commission tonight in terms of the change in plans, the city didn't analyze or take a position about safety issues, didn't analyze or take a position on traffic on West 41st Street. The city's decision was narrow and limited to the fact that they were not comfortable setting a precedent where they would allow access off of 464 because they are looking for future growth of that landfill. They've got a new scale house under construction this year and are planning for further development. So they were not comfortable impeding on access off of 464. They took a position on no other issues. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. I think that all of the submissions that I've read over the weekend that were recently submitted echo the comments that you heard last April when you approved the previous conditional use permit on a 6-0 vote. Issues of dust, issues of noise, those are a reality, but we think this site has factors that mitigate those issues, both the distance, the tree line, the hours of operation, the fact that in a month, it's likely only an operation grinding on this site for 6 to 9 days. So the large majority of the month, it's just delivery of wood products, and there's not any noise or dust being generated other than the delivery of untreated wood products. The county's previous data indicated that traffic would only increase by 3%. So I don't think we're going to see an increase in traffic. I recognize the wisdom of getting a traffic study conducted, and my client has had conversations with the engineering firm HDR of having that started. So we think that makes sense. I also think that by way of guidance to those who have views on this location, I think the Garrettson Gun Range is a great example of what the public can do to hold conditional use permit holders accountable. And that goes for my clients, if and when they get a conditional use permit, if there are issues, the public can come back to this body and say, here are the problems that are taking place. Likewise, as Mason mentioned in his comments, the city of Sioux Falls has a conditional use permit for that landfill. If members of the public don't like the way the landfill is being operated, they can come to this body and have the county analyze whether or not the city is performing under its previous conditional use permit. So there are mechanisms. We're getting the ammo and the flack for people's anger over the way the landfill has been conducted, the way they've failed to pick up trash, the way they've failed to be a good neighbor. As Mr. Kipley mentioned back in April, private industry, Muller pallets can be an example to the neighborhood and be an example to the city of what it is to be a good neighbor and do a better job of being a good community member and doing a better job of keeping good relationships with those in the neighborhood. So with that said, if I could have a chance at the end, Madam Chair, to answer questions that might be raised, I'm happy to answer any the commissioners have now, but there will be issues raised that I would just like to have a brief moment to address at the end of the hearing.
Anyone have any questions right now?
I just wonder, where would you set up your grinder at on that location on here with you got your trees down there in the south corner, and then you got your dimensional wood up there. I'm just wondering where exactly is it going to be at?
Yeah, if Mason could pull up the site plan for me. Yeah, so much of the grinding will move, But a lot of the dimensional wood is also ground at the site plant off of the T exit. But the grinding equipment is mobile, so we take it to different communities, and it'll move within that site. Interestingly, though, just south of what you're able to see in this image is where the city of Sioux Falls currently has their grinder operating today on the landfill property. So within the same bird's eye view of where our equipment will be functioning, the city already has a grinder functioning in that same location.
So you just move it back and forth between where you need it at on there, basically, then?
Correct, yeah.
Alrighty.
And one of the things that I want to make sure are clear in the conditions, we're comfortable and agree with the condition of graveling the driveway. It allows the mud to get knocked off the trucks after they've been on our site and before it gets on the road. But it's really critical that we not have rocks, another aggregate where the wood is being stored, because we can't get aggregate into the wood product. Otherwise, it makes that product unsaleable and unusable. So we want there to be a mechanism to keep the mud off the highway and keep the dust down, but we're going to have to be judicious in doing that to make sure that we're not impacting our product.
Any other questions for him now?
Madam Chair.
Joe?
Thanks for being here, Paul. Question would be on the traffic study. It sounds like you're open to that concept. Do you have any sense of a timeline of how long such a thing would take, and when we'd have some answers of what would need to change?
Sure. My understanding is that they're at least 6 weeks out. I don't know if that's 6 weeks out from starting their analysis or 6 weeks out from a finished product. I appreciate the question that you raised in terms of what level of deference are you turning over to the staff. I think the process and the precedent followed by the county as outlined by Mason works, so that if the county approves the access, there's a mechanism as demonstrated tonight with the gun club of members of the public making submittals to this body to then raise that to your attention. I'm a little, as outlined in the letter that we submitted late last week, the traffic and the problems out there are created in large part by the city's use of that general neighborhood. And it sort of feels like we're getting saddled with paying for a traffic study that the city should probably be on the hook for. But having said that, we understand that's what needs to happen to get our site approved, and we're comfortable with that requirement being in place.
Okay.
Thanks. Do you have a question?
No, but we might call you back.
Yeah, I won't go anywhere.
All right. Okay, anybody in the audience want to address this item? Please state your name and address.
Dan Brandt, 46408 267th Street. I'm the house that's directly across the road from the proposed site. We strongly are against having this grinding operation across the street from our house. It will greatly devalue our property immensely. The noise, the extreme dust, the air quality, the increase in traffic will be horrific. The existing driveway to the proposed site is only 30 feet from my driveway. And if they make their driveway wider, it's going to be even less. And it's going to make it more difficult for us to be able to leave our house, to be able to cross the road to get our mail. Not to mention, we also babysit grandkids or watch grandkids. So occasionally the school bus stops and drops kids off at our house. That's not could be a very safe issue for them as well. I guess my question to you is, would you want this in your front yard? Because it is directly in our front yard. The trees across the road are in the process of dying. They're ash trees, and we all know what's going on with ash trees. A year or two from now, they'll be gone. There's only like 2 rows of trees, where the landfill has multiple rows of trees to control the dust and the noise. We know they've had numerous fires in the past from their other locations. We also have proof that they don't just grind pallets and tree branches, but railroad ties, treated lumber, cabinets, and even countertops, Formica countertops. If logs are too big to fit in the grinder, they have to let them stack up until they rot down small enough to fit. And also, if they're only grinding 6 to 9 days a month, the rest of the month, the pile is growing of branches and, it'd be an eyesore to everyone. This large pile will also be also attract large numbers of rodents, which Muellers have not said how they control. They said they control them, but they've not mentioned how they control them. We live in a 110-year-old house on the home place, which has been in our family for over 70 years. We host a family reunion at our home every year with 60 to 70 people camping in our property for a week. And this is not a safe or healthy environment for this to be at. We also have a number of Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts that camp and store their equipment at our place. It's also not safe and healthy for them, as well as with the dust and all that. Sioux Falls denied Mueller Pallet from using the landfill road because of traffic and safety concerns. Mueller now wants to move the permit from a busy road to an even busier road at more than double the speed limit. If the city can see the problem with this site, surely the county can see it as well. Mrs. Mueller has stated before that on their busiest day, they have no more than 40 vehicles using their facility. Several people have gone down to the past site in T and did traffic counts on different days at different hours of the day. According to our findings, our estimate is close to 200 to 250 vehicles coming and going, according to the numbers we came up with, which is a lot more traffic. Mrs. Mueller, in her own words, had said since they closed the T location, the Sioux Falls landfill has a tsunami of branches and wood going to the landfill. She used the word tsunami 3 times in the conversation. I'm sorry, but a tsunami is a lot more than 40 vehicles. We know the landfill has a grinder in operation. We have no problems with that. The Mueller grinder will be 3 to 4 times closer to our homes. The landfill has berms and several rows of trees to help control the noise and dust. Mueller will not. The existing tree line is, like I said, is in the process of dying. This type of business needs to be in an area that they are not around any houses at all. We have no problem with Mueller Pallet's business or them making a profit, but it shouldn't be at the community's expense. It's not an appropriate location, and there are many locations in the area that would be at least a mile or more away from any homes. And the grinder that the landfill has is at the complete opposite end of the landfill. It's way to the south, so it's a lot farther away. Thank you.
Anyone else? No, for your information, we received several emails along with letters about this conditional use permit. So if you have something new to say, please state your name and address.
My name is Wanda Scott, and I live at 26693 Valdez Road. We're the house that's probably the only one that got notified in Country Villa Estates. We're on the southwest location. I wanted to say that when we first met with Planning Board in the spring, we were uninformed and we had not had time to gather data and present a clear and concise manner. So tonight's meeting has little to do with the city landfill, and I ask that you please start here tonight with clear and open minds. First of all, I'd like to say, that it's an inappropriate site, and I'm going to go through some of the stuff on the staff report. The staff report lists approximately 50 dwellings, and I want to say, let's not depersonalize it. These are homes that real people live in. They're out in their yards, there's children, there's elderly, it's a community, Some have lived there 30 or more years, the Brants, 75 or more years in their family. There are 58 homes in Country Villa, another one being built right now, and there are 3 other empty lots, so that could be potentially 62. Dayspring to the west has 6 homes and another 5 lots to build on, so that's 11. 464th Avenue, that has Brant's right across the road, and then it has a couple other neighbors on the gravel road that aren't very far away. 465th Avenue, which is on the east side of Country Villa, to the south, just to the south there are 18 homes there. And along 41st, there's a couple more. And let's see, I was gonna say there's a couple to the north on 465th Avenue. Plus, there are 10 lots to still be built on between Valdez and Dayspring. So it comes to a total of 91 current homes and 18 lots that are plotted for homes. So a potential of 109 homes in just the very surrounding area of this, to the north and to the east edges. We also have, a good community. We have veterans, we have nurses, we have school teachers, we have volunteers, We have our qualities too that make it worthwhile. I want to say that by setting up the rubble dump over in this field, you'd be setting a precedent for other like businesses that would also like to add on in that area. And we could become inundated with 3, 4, multiple businesses that want to set up over there. So you're really setting a precedent here that, just can't be turned around. Let's see. The landfill was designed, with a buffer, so we all talked about that. There was another precedent, I guess, on August 3rd. The Planning Commission denied a conditional use permit for a planned housing development 7 miles west of Garrettson. And this development, as you know, was 6 to 15 houses, if you remember it. And then they were denied because the neighbors were concerned about traffic in the area. But the additional traffic and the large trucks that Mueller Pallets will be bringing to our neighborhood is significantly higher. The City of Sioux Falls rejected access to the proposed site due to safety and congestion, and not like Mr. Cheddar said. They, Mark Cotter stated it in a TV interview, that that's why they denied it, because of safety and congestion. Now we're looking at access off of 41st Street, where it's an even busier road, 55 miles per hour, and our safety concerns have risen exponentially. We hope that, everybody will work together. There's other sites, where we can all kind of be winners. It could be put on the south side of the landfill. Muellers have a direct route to Poet. We have some more buffer for dust and stuff. And now I'm running out of time, I guess, so. But, dust is definitely, I'd like to just say, I know I'm over, but I'd like to say that if you look at the report written by the planning report, it does not address dust. How are they going to control it? 55 hours a week of dust? That's just, if you've seen one of those grind, you'll know that that's just way more than any community can handle. All right, thank you.
Anyone else care to address this item?
My name is Rebecca Jungling. I live at 4200 North Interlochen Trail. I'm an employee of Mueller Pallets. It's my family's business. I've worked there for 19 years, going on 20 this next year. And I'd just like to say, I know Grant had talked with our neighbors out at our site that we had prior, and I believe they had nothing but good things to say about how we've ran our operation. And there are many houses that were not 60 right around the current property, but quite a few that had children and grandchildren and pets and everything else. And we've never had an issue that I know of from our current neighbors. I would like to say that we try to run our operation as safely as possible. I know everybody states like off the interview with Mark Cotter about the safety questions of it, and part of it was not using the landfill road is to not set a precedence that just any business can branch off of the landfill road. We offered that that would be your safer one because it's a lower speed, which we would agree with, but the city did not grant that easement, which to me is really sad that we're still waiting to have our free community service yet for a free drop-off to try to save our landfill. We've taken trips into the landfill and sadly seen firsthand how wood is being buried, which is heartbreaking because our business has worked so hard to save landfills, not just our city landfill that services multiple counties, but also we go around to other communities as well and do tree sites and different things like that. So I'd really like for you guys to grant us the opportunity to serve our community. I know they said about landfill or railroad ties. I know we did a project, I believe, for Sioux Falls where we did grind those, but that is not something that we accepted down at our tree location by T. Granted, yes, some people drop them off. Those had to be disposed at the Sioux Falls landfill. They did not go through our grinder. But that's all I have to say.
Okay, anyone else?
Glenn Furstenberg, 46524 267th Street. I just want just a few things here. As Mr. Cheddar had stated, they started this process back in April, applying for this tree grinding operation. And back then, it was determined by you folks to make sure that we get everything together, get all the studies together, get everything ready so that it can be presented at one time. And here we are now in late August, and still we're going to do studies again. At what point in time do we stop doing studies and just reject this thing? Studies should have been done by now. It should have been done prior to applying. That's how we go through this process. We have all the stuff, all the facts together, bring it to you with everything laid out, and then you guys can make an informed decision. Right now, they're asking you to make a decision without being informed. Doesn't make sense. One other thing, I think it was you that said something about having to where you can go out and inspect their proposed operation with notice. I would ask that it be done without notice, that you can just show up and inspect, and if they're not following the guidelines that would be set forth by the planning, that they just be shut down, if you approve this. And then the other issue I would want to bring up is like the traffic flow during natural disasters. I know the petitioner had said that, they're here to help during natural disasters, and they've really helped, and I'm sure they have. But as you can imagine, when we have the natural disasters, not only the landfill is busy, but they're going to be busy, and that traffic is really going to be congested. There is another tree grinding operation, to my understanding, that is going on north of Sioux Falls. I'm not aware of where it's at exactly, but it's my understanding that that's going on. Since Mueller Pallets has shut down, I have not noticed any, and by the way, I live on the road going to the landfill. I have not noticed any more traffic with branches going out than what normally would be out there. I see the traffic going by every day. So I have not seen any increase. So I'm assuming, just in my assumption, that people are just taking it to the other place that's north of town and just dropping them off there. And if that seems to be working fine. And so, and the other thing that Mr. Cheddar brought up, that I think it was Mr. Cheddar, but that the landfill is growing. And so now the fact that they're growing and they're pushing all their operation out more towards the road, and now these guys are going to be towards the road, where's the traffic going to park when it gets backed up? Again, especially during the natural disasters. They're going to be forced to stay on the highway, and that is going to create a real danger. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Uh-oh. You didn't see me? Okay, Grand Edgecombe, 26685 Day Spring Circle. I'm going to take a little different route. It hasn't been discussed that I know of, but there needs to be more research done before the approval of this. Like Wanda said, we've learned how to do some things. We kept hearing about the plan, the 1990 plan. In 1998 was approved. And the very first point, title and purpose, number 1, these regulations are designed to carry out the goals and objectives of the plan, but especially to lessen congestion in the streets. So here we're taking an operation that was from T, and all of their operation took all the traffic from Sioux Falls and surrounding area over to T. Now they're going to move on this end of the town. So all of this traffic that was coming from all these directions, coming down 151, 148, 17, Highway 42, 12th Street, 57th Street, and up from the T. Ellis Road is all congregating. And if you could put the site plan back up there for me, I don't know if you can or not with the timer on there, but it congregates all in the funnel at the very top, right by the paragraph word. So all these, it's all coming down here. And then now some of it's going to come to the pink driveway, which is an L-shaped driveway for Mueller pallets. And that violates, number 1, congestion is crowding, clogging, accumulation. And this plan does the exact opposite of what we feel is in number 102, purpose. Like-minded businesses, she didn't mention the names, but it could be asphalt grinding, another concrete. There's 12 acres left total in the 80 acres. So let's just fill them up with grinding cars and a metal grinder. Put everybody together. You know, they can come all the way down, they can come all the way down to the east, and there's plenty of land. 12 more acres, 12 more acres, 12 more acres, new building, conditional use permits. And so these regulations are designed from the plan, designed to carry out the goals and objectives of the plan and to lessen congestion in the streets. That's the part that they're violating. To secure safety from fire, panic, and other dangers. So let's focus on other dangers. Today there was an interviewer coming out from a TV station to interview some residents, and following a truck with trees, and a branch fell off right in front of her car. How ironic that that would happen. And she had to swerve into the other lane of traffic in order to miss it. Now, she didn't report that, but that's what we were told. It's supposed to promote health. Well, the health from the dust and the fumes and the odors, even Poet has to have a dust recovery system when these big semi-trailers come, and some are dump trailers and unload off the back, maybe like a silage wagon that has a thing. They have to recover the dust according to the air quality. And that was a quote from Mr. Greenfield. The other thing I read in the information was they talk about structures, buildings, vacant lots, dwellings, residents. But that deletes the whole purpose of this because it's about people. And in those 50 to 100 houses, because we're branched out now down the side roads, and we've contacted people, there's 1 to 6 people in each one of those dwellings that they call it. That's 500 people. And that's 500 people that can't come tonight, but they're asking us to speak. And so now more people have stepped up, and it's great that they're speaking. It's just, I don't know, there's so much now that I have information. Is it going to improve the transportation, the land utilization that will facilitate the economical and adequate provision of transportation. And then in their schools and parks. And Dan kind of hit on it just a little bit, but there's going to be schools coming and going. Morning, afternoon, special events at night, ball games, weekends, they have tournaments where they travel. And it's gonna affect us. And how does it improve the safety for the schools or for the mail delivery? UPS drivers, package drivers, FedEx, UPS, Amazon, all those people come in and out of our area. And, I'm sorry, not to mention the delivery vehicles that are bringing fuel, hydraulics, they're doing repairs on all of the vehicles in the landfill and at Mueller pallets. I guess I'm just gonna, if you allow me to end,
I'm sorry, your 5 minutes are up.
thanks.
Chuck Runge, 26731 465th. Quick question, why the commercial use of the whole 80 or 77 acres? If Mueller only needs the west 15, why is the whole 77 getting potentially zoned commercial?
The property is not being rezoned, and it is only the 15 acres. They have to follow the site plan on the west 15 acres.
Yes, when I got the thing in the.
We sent a letter with the entire 77 acres
Yes.
because they have to notify everybody within 500 feet of the entire 77 acres, even though they're only using a portion of it.
All right. That was my question. On a side note, 20 minutes ago, we said something about the Runge landfill. Believe me, my family never had a damn thing to do with that. We fought it tooth and nail 50 years ago, so.
Hi, I'm Diane Runge, 46473 267th Street, Hartford. So as they do this plan, I live east and probably only 3 football fields away from where they're doing this. And we have a neighbor that's even closer, Arvie, and he is in really bad health and he wasn't able to come today. And so looking off of his property, that's all he's going to see. They haven't said anything about putting up fences or anything on our east side to protect us. And if you go down the gravel road where my children live, my granddaughter live, we need that protection that, especially my granddaughter, that being outside and playing, that she is not going to get some kind of lung disease. And so there has to be more planning on doing the boroughs of getting it. Also, so our neighbor, which is another relative, he wanted to make his driveway wider, I'll say 3-4 years ago, and he was denied. So why are you going to give them permission to change that driveway and not give us residents the same opinion or option that we could make ours wider also? So why does one person get something and another person doesn't? I would think it should fall in with everybody. And just today, we had people die on the roads. Now granted, it wasn't by us, but on the interstate, someone ran into a bus, the driver was dead, and 6 of the kids on the bus were hospitalized. And over by Alcester, a semi went through a stop sign, killed an 82-year-old lady. So with all the trucks and semis that are going to be coming out, it's going to happen. It's just when we have Wall Lake there and Wildwater West, cars full of children. And if one person blows that stop sign, there are going to be injuries and deaths from it. So please, not just us people that live there will be affected. It will be everybody. Thank you.
Hello,
My name is Leonard Waldner. I live at 26685 Prairie Avenue in Hartford, at Countryville Estates, about in the center of Countryville Estates. I want to talk about traffic. I've been a truck driver, 40 years, and I do know a little bit about traffic. And I'm not against Mueller pellets. I don't think we are. I love business, and I love what Mueller Pellet is standing for, helping our landfill. And what they're doing, I applaud. I really do. My contention, or ours, is simply find a better location, right there at the landfill. I drew a map. If I could show it, could I somehow? It's not counting on my time, is it?
No.
I hope I'll be all right, though. Well, I'll talk in the meantime.
Yeah, you can talk while I'm doing this.
Well, what we propose is why not put Mueller pellets, wouldn't it work for you, Mueller pellets, to go on the southwest corner? Instead of the southeast corner, for one, the southeast corner, which you see on my
Please
map.
speak into the microphone, sir.
Yes.
The southeast corner of the landfill has a gate. It's a wide gate. It's closed, but it comes off of, it's on 268th Street, which is the back road behind the landfill. See, what they could do, Mueller Pellet's advantage and benefit is having Mueller there. They are closer to Chancellor. They are closer to Poet, because all they have to do is get out on 268 and head west 3/4 of a mile, and they're on that Wall Lake Road that curves right there and goes 1.5 miles, and then it curves down to Chancellor. They would be literally 2 hours, 2 miles closer than going around for where they want to be. And, it'll be a benefit there. What another benefit is, it's a full mile. I measured it to every resident. And for us, the whole landfill is in between us. But there's a farm that's it's northwest of that location, but it's still within a mile. But and there's 2 other places, but it's a better location. Like I say, I want Mueller there. I don't care what others say. I think they're a benefit to the landfill. They should just find a better place rather than so close to residents. That's my feeling. And okay, here we got the map going. Let me show you on the map. Okay, here's the landfill. See this? And here's Mueller Pellets going to be, out here is 41st Street. And we are over here.
Use the microphone.
Okay, I'm sorry. We are over here, and here is the southwest corner that I'm thinking of. And all they'd have to do is come out here, and they're on Wall Lake Road. So they're closer, they're away from residents. And if they don't like this, they can go over here, or they could go on the southeast corner, because there's an open gate there. closed gate, a big wide gate and that goes there. How much time do I have? I don't want to overdo it. Another thing I was gonna say, trucks go down this road a lot, and I'm a truck driver. I understand that we need a lane fill. Sioux Falls lane fill comes ahead of our interests, my personal opinion. We need a lane fill, but isn't there a better way? I was looking at this map. Instead of all the traffic coming up 41st, a lot of traffic could be rerouted up 12th to Wall Lake Road and then down into the lane fill. Even a better place is open this back gate just for trucks. Put a scale right here on that side, right by Mueller, and have trucks come down Wall Lake 268 and come into the lane fill that way. And until that scale is built, just have them circle and scale here and unload. Or they could come in the southeast gate and come and circle and scale. Until that scale is finished, then they can just scale and go dump. And then they could leave. And another thing I was thinking, there's a road, it's an oil road, it's County Road 102. It's also 269th Street. You can exit off. Here's another map. I'm going to draw this one. You can.
That's been 5 minutes.
Sir, your 5 minutes is up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I just finish just quickly? What about the future Sioux Falls? 10 years, 15 years?
Talk in the mic, please.
Oh, what about, a future Sioux Falls, 10, 15, 20 years? I'm thinking, what will we do about the lane fill? Will we widen 41st to make up the traffic? That's an option. It's an option. But I think someday we'll be making a 229 around from where 229 ends and around, and then there'll be a spur, and that traffic could come in the south side. A total different road. It would take all the truck off 41st. It would take so much truck off because all the people coming 229 from the south side, from the east side, they would come around 229 and take the spur. Well, even if 229 is never built, you could still build a good road right to the lane fill off of 229.
Your time is up.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Sorry for overdoing. But the way Sioux Falls is growing, thanks to our governor and thanks to your leadership, I believe that has much to do. Sioux Falls is growing. It's going to need more roads, better. But thank you very much.
Chet Hofer, 26662 465th Avenue. There are two major factors that I see other than what is being brought up. Fire. Those trees are going to die for sure with dust helping the ash trees. And then if there is a fire in the fall and that goes through those trees and jumps 41st Street and gets into a cornfield that's been harvested or a dry corn or whatever, that fire could keep going. Another thing, there is drain tile that drains probably about 30 acres on the north side of 41st Street, and it would be to the east of the Brandt residence. There's drain tile that goes underneath the 41st and daylights in this property that's being proposed for this tree grinding thing. If that grinder is close to that line, the vibration can fracture that line, and if it plugs that line, then we're gonna have that 30 acres flooded, and that could affect the Brants also. So there has to be a better place than putting this right next to all the residents and the high traffic that 41st Street has going to the landfill, and this is added, and if there's semis unloading in that, how many semis are able to get in and stand and unload and leave that property? It's going to be a total congestion area. Thank you.
Anyone else? The opposition?
Nathan Jungling, 4200 North Interlochen Trail. I am the son-in-law of the family business, so I guess I take a lot of it to heart. It is a free wood drop-off. It helps the city of Sioux Falls, provides a service for the whole community. I feel you would not find anybody that would go out of their way more than Margie to provide that service anywhere in the community if she felt the need, anywhere from feeding the homeless to doing anything. And that's where I feel just the free wood yard is a great thing for the community. I would love to see it there. I think there's a lot of great points brought up about the traffic, but I'd wonder about the traffic count of the city landfill even, or who is counting cars? Are you counting axles and stuff like that? Great questions, great feedback all around. Truck traffic, yes, everybody has truck traffic. You have truck traffic on Sioux Falls with the bridge right now. It's everywhere. But you also have it going to the city landfill. So we also said we saw no tree branches going out there, but then Grant had somebody just about get hit with one that was under a tarp that came out. A lot of the facts are presented to you guys, and I hope you can find it to see that this is a free service to the community. And yes, it does look like an eyesore sometimes, but the landfill is right there too. If I was hauling my trash out there and my tree branches, it's one trip. It makes a great experience to do one thing out at the landfill. I would have loved it to be on that road so I can just turn right off the city landfill. I don't know why the city landfill isn't working with trying to find a compromise, or if they just do not want to be part of angering any of the neighbors around there. So I'm going to say thank you for your service to the community by what you're doing. I'd also like to say that right now the city of Sioux Falls is also hauling all their wood out, and it's in dump trucks. So it's like 13-1 to get all that stuff out of the product out with the dump trucks right now. So I don't think there really is going to be much more truck traffic. So thanks. I hope you guys have a nice night. Thank you.
Okay, before I close the floor, any more comments?
My name is Casey Lemmy. I live at 21 East 29th Street North, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I have two kids. I go to Waterville West quite a bit. I also go to Wall Lake quite a bit. I have family that lives out there. That traffic out there is crazy. I mean, it's just crazy. I seen traffic lined up from the city landfill alone by itself. Now, if you have this add-on, you're gonna have traffic right on the road waiting to get into Mullet, and you're gonna have traffic trying to get into the city landfill, which I think that's a concern for kids that go to Waterville West, teenagers from Sioux Falls. Kids like my kids go to Waterville West. That's a concern for my kids. Also, he made a comment about city landfill. Well, you can't really see the city landfill from the road. They have it bumped, they have it pretty covered. You can't see it that well. Now, this is right on the road. There ain't no buffers. There ain't no nothing. There's barely any trees there. I mean, yeah, they got one line of trees, but that's it. So he's sitting there saying that, you know, you can see the sea landfill, you can't. So I just think it's a very concern myself for my kids to have all that traffic when I go out there to visit my relatives, go to Wall Lake, Water West. I mean, and it's a concern of mine. And also, if this is a thing for Sioux Falls, would Sioux Falls allow something like this be built around Sioux Falls? I mean, probably not, right? Well, we have a housing development out there. Why are we allowing that to be built right by a housing development? Ain't those people equal to people in Sioux Falls? That's all I gotta say. Thanks.
Okay. Paul, do you have any comments to make? I'll give you a couple minutes.
I'll keep it very brief. Thank you. Thank you for the chance to speak. I'll be very brief. I think 90% of the comments tonight relate to traffic, and I think the staff proposal and the condition relating to traffic creates an opportunity for that issue to be resolved by the professionals. I would anticipate there'll be some recommendation there in light of the landfill traffic, whether it's a left-hand turn lane or 2 left-hand turn lanes that would be proposed. I think that's going to be part of this process. I think the other issues that are raised echoed some of the same information you heard last spring. I certainly appreciate the viewpoints that we heard tonight and people taking the time. We've invited a dialogue with representatives of the neighborhood, and as Margie mentioned earlier, we did not receive a response to that invitation. Having said that, we want to be a good neighbor. We think we will be a good neighbor. We think we'll be an example for the city on what a good neighbor can be for the community out there. We think the traffic study will provide a lot of insights as to what needs to happen there to address these concerns. Issues with noise and dust are certainly, I think, addressed earlier in my comments, but the one thing I would add with dust is the economic incentives are aligned in relationship to dust. The dust is profit for the applicant. They're not going to grind when their profit is blowing away. The neighbors don't want the dust. The applicant doesn't want the dust to blow away. We won't grind. We're not grinding every day. We will not grind when the conditions are not appropriate. Empirically, at the T site, they held off grinding at that location and let the pile grow to grind seasonally when there were more prevailing north winds. Similarly, that would make sense at this site given the north tree line. And if that's the case, then to the extent there is any dust, it's blowing to our city friends at the landfill rather than to any other homes in the area. So with that, I'll answer any other questions you have, but would appreciate your approval with the conditions proposed.
Any questions for him?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I have a couple. Would the applicant be open to something in there about the more rows of trees and maintaining the trees in an alive status? Sometimes we put that on our conditional use permits, and then in light of the property owners to the east, having trees to the east to also provide protection for those property owners. And I'm not an expert, I couldn't conjecture how many rows that would need to be, but we've done things in the past where then they have to be maintained alive. It's part of the
I
condition.
think that at this particular site, given the proximity, that I have got the authority to agree to that condition. I will tell you that, as demonstrated tonight, there are other locations that are possible. That we may or may not ever conduct our business at this location. So I don't want you to conflate my agreement to trees at this location to be an agreement that trees might be appropriate at other locations in the future. If that's fair.
Certainly. I have one other question, Madam Chair. I don't see a turnaround in the site plan.
Yep.
And, I mean, I hate to assume anything, but that the turnaround would be part of that site plan.
Yeah, that blue box that's unlabeled in the site plan, just to the north of the lower part of the L, that area is what's been identified as an area to remain clear of any other debris to provide the trucks to have a turnaround.
Anyone else? Joe?
Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, could you just describe generally the efforts put in to potentially find other locations?
Yeah, I might exceed my time. Since our involvement or last appearance before you in April, I'm aware of my client examining no fewer than 8 to 10 sites, and I know that there was months and months of work, as the realtor described to you back in April, that was undertook prior to my involvement. I can also tell you that although the city demonstrated a willingness to help us find sites within the city limits that the city owned and put us in contact with other private landowners, that was that initial offer back in June, so they could get headlines of how cooperative they were, quickly dissipated. And all of the sites that the city had back in June said were possible sites within the city limits, magically somebody else in city government decided that that wasn't workable as the summer went on. So we have looked at, I would not be bashful in telling you that my client, between the city's proposed sites, the realtor's examination, on our analysis, has looked at better than 12.5 sites.
And Madam Chair, if I can just follow up on the city's issues, I think you made your position is that the city denied, or I guess it wasn't really a formal proceeding, was it? It was just a staff level decision, and you described it as fairly narrow grounds for why they decided that, something to the effect of that they didn't want to set a precedent of other branching off right of ways to go do other commercial businesses. Is that a fair assessment of?
It is actually the comments that the other folks made about safety and traffic were both correct, but it was all related to 464. The city couched the real reason they didn't want to give us access was because they didn't want to set a quote unquote precedent of allowing access off of that controlled access off into the landfill. In discussing that road, they identified issues of safety of the landfill and congestion of their landfill access. It wasn't discussing safety and congestion related to West 41st Street.
And while still noting that we still have traffic and safety concerns about West 41st Street, just on our friends at the city, maybe this is more of a comment than a question, but that's frustrating that it took them that much time. We granted quite a bit of time in the process at the county commission level for them to negotiate with you, the presumption being that negotiation would be in good faith. And maybe I'll just leave that comment at that, unless you'd want to add anything.
I don't need to add any further comment to that.
Any other questions for him? Go ahead, Doug.
I'd just like to ask if you ever thought of having a wind graph or to see where the prevailing winds are throughout the year, just to put at ease, because I know when we did our dairy, we had neighbors that were all worried. We had a wind graph, the prevailing winds when, what time of year, put it to bed. So I think something with going to the weather service and gaining wind graphs would be very helpful.
Sure.
And the biggest thing I see here is there's a lot of afraid of the unknown. And everybody's that way. But, we're all of you people in favor of the landfill. We didn't hear anything negative about the landfill. If the landfill was to be put out there today, would you be fine with it? I don't know. But it's just the fear. It's just that fear factor of the unknown is the biggest thing here to me.
Okay, anyone else? Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Okay. Have you been already to the podium? No.
Somebody else.
Yeah.
May I speak?
I'll give you one more, and then I'm going to close the floor.
Okay. One more minute?
No, you can have the...
I know. My name is Faith Trey. I live at 46465.
Ma'am, can you use the mic?
Please use
microphone?
microphones.
Yep, sorry.
I'm a performer, believe it or not. but that looked like a mic to me. Okay, anyway, I live at 46465 Anchor Drive, Hartford, South Dakota. We have lived there since 1978. And what I wanted to say is you say we have a fear of the unknown, but what we have known is seen so much the increase in traffic since we have lived here. And believe it or not, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close the floor. Commissioners?
Well, Madam Chair, I can put my 2 cents in here. I do think the traffic is my biggest concern, and I'm still a little bit hung up on just I'm not only am I the liaison to planning and zoning, I'm also the liaison to the highway department. So I'm getting it coming and going here as far as this. But in all seriousness, I don't know that the highway department is the right one to just place this on. Just from the sense of kind of a theory of political process and political accountability, I think that traffic report would come back and say something about safety that I feel like should be weighed within these 6 measures of a conditional use permit. And I don't know that the highway superintendent is the right locus of that power. But that said, with the, I feel like either way we go on it at this body, there is effective proponents and opponents that I expect an appeal. So again, speaking as the one county commissioner at this stage, I don't know that I've heard the end of this either way. I think we might be reviewing this at the full county commission, I guess. And in that status as a representative of county government, I will express my displeasure with the city government at this level. I don't know that they gave a very productive use of time, because before the county commission, when we were reviewing this, the city asked for more time to review and potentially come to a mutual solution on what I think is, we'll see where we go down the road on traffic studies, but I think objectively the plan to come in on 464th Avenue is objectively better than creating a new turn in on West 41st or 267th Street without any other improvements. I think that's probably a pretty objectively easy answer. So I thought the first plan was better than this one. So it's frustrating to feel like you're going backwards on a plan here. And then the other thing I guess I'm frustrated with the city on is, I think the petitioner highlighted this, even if we have our math a little bit off, I think when we went through this hearing back in April, we did at least the rough quantity comparing the traffic to Muller pallets to the landfill, and we came up with some number like 3%. So even if we're off by an order of double that, the proportional burden of what we're going to be talking about, this traffic study and the future traffic in this area, really the driver of it is the city. And so I would look to them to have been a more constructive partner on this, other than I think we've gotten a little bit of the runaround of, as the applicant mentioned, on different properties and different staff members giving different answers. I think in fairness to the citizens that live there and near the landfill, I've heard stories from them where they get the runaround on, oh, you got to talk to the sheriff. No, you got to talk to the city. No, you got to talk to the county. And we just bump them around to different, which agency has the authority. So I think we've kind of got to get to a point where the buck stops here, and that might end up being with the county commission. I am generally sympathetic to the project, as this body showed in approving a version of a conditional use permit for this back in, if it was April. So I don't know that my overall view has changed too much, other than now I'm just that much more concerned about the traffic going off of this more major road. So those are kind of a set of my concerns, and I say all that not to bias my colleagues. I am genuinely interested in their input And in some level, at this stage, I feel like your input is more important than mine because whatever action we take, like I said, it will most likely get appealed up to the next body, and I can play a role on that one as well. So I'm genuinely interested in what weighing of interests and different things my colleagues have to say.
Yes, Madam Chair. I'd just like to follow up. I agree with Mr. Kipley over there. I agree. I liked it back in April a lot more, I guess, than I do today here. I thought access off of that 464 road would be a lot better. That was my thinking too when I was reading through the packet here. I guess my concern is that West 41st Street. I'll be honest, there the traffic it gets pretty hectic there. I just thought it would be safer coming down the road going to the landfill, and that's why I liked it better back in April. So.
Okay, anyone else?
Madam Chair, I'd just like to echo, yeah, traffic is a thing that I really have a hang-up with. I know numerous people, look how fast Sioux Falls is growing. Well, what happens? We're gonna have more traffic no matter what, where you live. There's gonna be traffic. It's gonna be accidents. We don't want accidents, but there's going to be accidents. And just because, let's not say one of us wouldn't be at fault out there, we run into a truck. People are crazy, cell phones, texting. Yeah, traffic is scary. And, speed limits, everybody goes much faster than speed limits. I'll be one of the first to say that. Thank goodness I haven't been stopped very often. But, traffic is it. But I know the shelter belt was kind of an issue here, but trees can be replanted. I mean, you can put super trees up and not even hardly see it. Because yesterday when I went out there and drove, it was like, nothing's wrong here. So, but traffic is my concern. Coming off 260 or 464th, excuse me, that would have been the cat's meow. But the traffic issue is a very concern. So I hope we can have something decided on that. But otherwise, I'm for this.
Anyone else?
I voted for this earlier, but I think with the change in access, I'm just not as comfortable this time around. I can't support it right now in this form.
Mike?
I guess I'm the odd man out here if I don't say something. Historically, we try and look at these issues and try and say, okay, what's appropriate for the land use? What's appropriate for adjacent things that already exist? And this is really a tough one because, yes, the city landfill is there, but there's also a community out here too. And that's the balance, right? So is there a finger point of who came first? No. So then you kind of take a step back and say, okay, well, yes, the landfill's there. Yes, the community's there. So then what do you look at? You look at, okay, is there buffers that are appropriate to help screen? And from what I'm hearing from the residents out there is they do feel that the landfill has done adequate measures or the best they can, at least to try and help mitigate sight lines, dust, odor, whatever you want to consider. Okay, so then you take that out of the equation and say, well, but there's a tree belt there. Maybe it's adequate, maybe it's not. Maybe we could add some requirements for trees or additional trees. And then the next thing to look at really is the access. And it really doesn't feel like access off 267 is appropriate or a safe option. And that's just a gut reaction, I guess. I'm not a traffic engineer, so I'm not going to sit here and say that I have the credentials to make that call. But we all recognize tonight that 267th is busy and is only getting busier. So yes, we did. We look back in April. And this was what we felt was an appropriate use, with also the consideration that the access would come from the west. And I think in my mind that's what it comes down to is, unfortunately, the access really doesn't work in this particular configuration. So I guess I kind of said what everyone else already said, but maybe in a little bit different way, a little more verbose, but that's kind of what I'm looking at. So, I mean, I do feel for everyone here because I do feel like yes, it's appropriate, and yes, it's not. And this one really is a tough one for me. Because like I said, when we look at these land issues, half of them are, was it appropriate next to landfill, or is it appropriate next to a community? And that's where I'm really struggling with this one.
Sometimes we have to make the hard decisions that don't always agree with everybody. That's what part of this panel does. Our basic thing is to decide land use. I'm concerned with the safety out there. I thought that the first plan was better than the plan of traffic coming on 41st Street. I'm always concerned about safety, but I'm also concerned with the fact that our government agencies can't work together. That's not how it should work at all, because most of us are here to do our public service, so to speak, and we try to do the best we can, make the best decisions at the time that we can. I will consider a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll make a comment and then a motion to kick us off here. I think at some point in the discussion it got brought up, I guess just the concept of conditional use permits, and that if something goes wrong, we can hold those people accountable and bring them back up. But I guess it just brought up the thought experiment again back to if the proportional issue here for the traffic is the traffic to the city landfill. It does make one give some thought, and kind of the thought exercise of if it was the city bringing forward a government-based initiative, we'd be looking at that and probably asking the city to do a traffic study and probably asking the city to bear the cost of those turn lanes or whatever the logical conclusions are them. But we have a private business that's coming forward. So I do have some sympathy for the private business that's basically essentially potentially being forced to carry the weight here. So just as my opening shots in the salvo with intergovernmental conflict there, I guess, to see if we can work together on a viable solution with the city. That will be an ongoing issue, I'm sure, as we continue to grow. But I will make a motion to approve the conditional use permit with the conditions as laid out by staff.
Okay. I have a motion and a second to approve conditional use permit 23-43. Any further discussion? I think we should have a roll call vote here. Adam?
Nay.
Mike?
Nay.
Becky?
Nay.
Doug?
What do I say, yay?
Yes.
I'm for it.
And Joe?
Aye.
We had 3 noes and 2 yeses. That means that it was denied. Okay, we'll move on to old business.
Madam
Kevin?
Chairman, I think for just clarity, and I'll ask the legal counsel, your motion was to approve the request which failed, but now you need a motion to deny the request.
Final action, Madam Chair.
It's been voted down.
So apparently you have 3 people that like to deny it. So one of the 3 should make a motion to deny, and you take a vote on that.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to deny
okay.
the condition. I can't remember what number it is.
2343.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to deny conditional use permit 23-43. All those in favor of the denial?
Aye.
Oppose?
No.
Passes. Thanks, Scott. Old business, we have an update. How long do you think that's going to take, Kevin?
5 minutes.
There we go. I guess how long is it going to take? I'd say we can leave this up to you. We can take your time go real briefly, and we can bring it forward another meeting for an old business. Otherwise, if you had time to look through it, the ordinance, it doesn't have to take that long. We can move forward with some more substantial, like an actual hearing on the ordinance as well. I was just going to say that this has been brought up just once to discuss. Staff prepared the potential ordinance, which was provided to you. The proposal would look through the changes to go in for shipping containers into the additional use regulations underneath the accessory buildings. And so it'd be considered as an accessory building on a property. And yeah, if you have any questions, we can move forward with some of those questions. Otherwise, if we wanted to close down the meeting, it'd be up to you.
Yeah, Kevin, those that are out there already, would they be taxed?
So I'll put this out there. This has not been reviewed by any sort of by our state's attorney or anything like that. But the way that it's proposed is anything out there already would have like the 90 days to either be removed or get a building permit. Just like any other temporary use shipping container, they would have 90 days to place it on their property. Otherwise, they'd have to get a building permit.
Any other questions for him?
Just one quick question as we're building our knowledge base on this new issue, kind of like the short-term rental and Airbnb, like a whole knowledge base and a whole community of people that you didn't really know how big of a world this was until you get in regulating it. I don't know, I guess just maybe encourage us to do our research and maybe reach out to anybody locally that has interest in this, or architecture firms if they're talk about people that actually build with these for structures. It would just be good to get, I thought that was a helpful part of the short-term rental regulation, was working with the business community that wants to do this type of thing, and we're wanting to regulate it, and those don't have to be mutually exclusive or in combating one another, but maybe we can come to a win-win. But I can see how this might be another emerging issue that we have to get out ahead of somehow. So yeah, I don't know if there's any rush so that we need to address it tonight or even at the next meeting. We can take our time with it from my perspective.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Becky.
Do we know, are there any of these, well, I think there's random ones here and there, but do we know in the county, have they been used to actually build on top of each other? I mean, I've seen them in cities where there's like 3 of them stacked 3 high.
Sure, I am aware of one structure that has been built out of it, and it was a type of thing that where, so the county's standards for getting building permits and things, they gave us a site plan, they gave us a plan for the structure, and then Dan gets out there and goes, well, that's why the dimensions of this thing is 8 feet by 40 feet long, is because they're using shipping containers. So it was an unknown that it was going to be using shipping containers until we got to the permit, the actual building site. So that was one of the things that has happened that kind of helps kind of spur this. Okay, how are we going to move this forward and make sure that we're going in the right direction?
Okay. Any other questions for him?
I have one question, if I may.
Go ahead.
The 90-day period, so it sounds like anything less than 90 days, if it's there, it doesn't need a permit. Where's the thought behind the 90 days? I'm just asking the question. I mean, if there is, it's great. And here's why I bring that up. So this is me being selfish now. So when I built my house, I used one because I had building material stored in there, and it was probably there for 6 months. It's gone now. It wouldn't even be before the board if this did go through. So it doesn't affect me. But just to think a thought like that, temporary uses, and maybe that's a unique situation where I'm the only guy that ever want to use a shipping container to store windows and stuff like that when we're building the house. But so I just wasn't sure if there was logic behind that 90 days or if that was just a good starting point.
Sure, and actually to your point, looking through, there is an exception that if you have an active building permit on your house, you can keep a shipping container while that permit is active.
Okay.
So then because yes, you would not be an exception to that kind of a building practice where you might get a pod, bring it from one house to another while you're doing construction and using it for temporary storage. So that would be some time that you can use that temporary storage.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We're all right. New business?
So for clarification on this shipping container deal, do you want more time to consider it and we bring it back, or are you ready to publish a hearing notice?
Any comments from the commission?
Me personally thinking, publish a hearing notice.
Yep. I would
Let's
say-
not kick it down the road forever. Let's just
And we would publish the hearing notice for the November meeting, because the September meeting is pretty much, or sorry, October meeting. So it would go to the October meeting. That'll give basically you an extra month, September. It'll be at the end of October, so it'll be basically 2 months from now, if that's okay. Okay.
That's fine.
Thanks.
Sounds fine. Okay. Scott, you have some new business?
I think we have a little timeline, and this will be very brief. So we are looking at updating our comprehensive plan, and we have prepared a timeline of what we are looking at. So we're looking at about 4 to 6 months, maybe a little bit more of the research, the writing, and the preparation. And then next year, in the spring, more than likely, we would have some public open house where we would have some information for the public, and then we would bring it to you for some formal adoption. But in addition to the timeline, if you recall, when we adopted the Envision 2035 plan, we had a task force, and this planning staff, we wrote the plan, and then we took it to the task force. We got feedback, we made corrections, so on. So the task force sort of helped prepare the plan, and then we brought it to you. But as this is just an update, my pitch to you would be, well, you have a couple of options. You can set up a task force as a planning commission, or you can just, once we write the chapters, and we may bring, like 1-2 chapters at a time, we would bring them to you, and we could discuss them at a meeting like this. You could give us your feedback, and we could compile it as we go. So I'm not sure, Madam Chairman, which method you'd like to follow, but maybe that's a discussion you can have tonight to give us some direction. And if you are going to set up a task force, then we would need to sit down with you and the liaison, whoever, to create a task force.
Well, Scott and I had this discussion. I think I was part of that task force at the
You were.
time. It took a lot of time and energy. I think that the fact that you're just going to update it, so to speak, that we should rely on our staff to do that and then bring it back to us. And we can look it over, and, I mean, we can, not to say that we can't make adjustments or consider something else, but I think that would be a lot easier. It just gets more complicated once you start setting up more people for more committees, so to speak. And it takes a lot, sometimes the timeline
It
could be
does stretch it
longer.
out.
Yeah.
How did you feel the participation was with the open houses? I went, I liked it.
We had good participation at our open houses, and you do get some feedback. So it's the key to these open houses is getting the word out and sending out somehow notices, cards, postcards, something. The legal ad in the papers aren't always there's not a lot of eyes that see those, so you really have to be creative in getting the word out, and then go from there.
Anyone else have any comments? Have any problem with just the staff updating them and bringing them back to us?
I think that's a great way to get started. We can always pivot from there.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll start working on it. And given the nature of our timing, so we don't have meetings in December. So, that really only gives us a couple months to get something to you. So hopefully in October, November, we'll have some of the first chapters, and then we'll start going from there. And probably, look at it. We'll have more work product for you, January, February, March. But as you're also aware, our January meetings can sometimes be hectic because we have 2 months' worth of items to bring to you. So we'll see how it goes. And I'll keep Bonnie informed and we'll go from there. But that's all I have, unless you have any questions for me.
Questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to
Thanks.
adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.